Hi there, this is the Wyckoff speedrun session for AI, real-world assets, and payments crypto projects. And if you're new to my sessions, here are the 3 key items I'll cover during the session for excuse me, the 20 plus crypto projects that we're going to cover. So let's start with the first one, Algo. So for Algo, it's basically within the middle stage at least, if not the mid-late stage of the accumulation. And looking at the chart itself, the volume has been coming down consecutively for 4 weeks. The price spread is getting lower, so let's hope it stays something similar if it continues to get red and goes deeper to the red key level of 10 cents. Okay, this level was tested back in August 2024 during that shorter accumulation cycle. All right, that accumulation cycle from the last leg downwards towards the right before it pumps up, that lasted for 154 days, so roughly 5 months time. But this time, from the first leg down to where we are now, we are already close to 300 days. So almost double what happened in 2024. Of course, for the case of Algo, it did not suffer prolonged accumulation during 2022. You know, if you have been with me, with seeing all those altcoin charts, some has got into an accumulation very early in around 2022 and lasted all the way at a very low level till near the end of 2024. This is not the case for Algo. So when we look at what's next for the AI, RWA, and payment crypto, or when people say altcoins are basically going through a bear market, not every single project would be the same. Back then, 2002 to 2004, it was different. Right now, it is still different across different projects. So we'll look into those. So what to expect for Algo in terms of Wyckoff stages in the accumulation cycle is that if this is really a test or even a spring, meaning after a sign of strength, a deeper test to check out the paper hands. All right. Once there are no more paper hands, people are holding strong. Even the project is going to disappear. They're not going to let it go. If there are those diamond hands, the whales would know, there's nobody going to sell anymore. And that's when the price got to stabilize and bottom out, and eventually it may come up for another sign of strength with volume. Look at what happened back in mid-July, right? That volume bar, those two are significantly or obviously higher than the average during the accumulation cycle. All right, we want to see that happen. And when that happens, there are 2 scenarios. One, it comes up to show another sign of strength and then probably retrace a little where the whales may, there are many whales in the world, okay? Not just one whale, okay? Don't get confused. There are some whales would still get in at that point because that's when the price would eventually go to a new distribution cycle. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that it doesn't even show a sign of strength, meaning there's no retracement. It's just go rather straight into the distribution. Look at what happened over here, right? In 2024, near the end, in November. It was 5 consecutive white candles all the way to the buying climax. There's no coming back, basically. Okay, we don't see any sideways trading or red candle. That's the scenario 2. Scenario 3, obviously, after first sign of strength, it came down. Second sign of strength, came down again. That's why I have this tag over here. All right, so the difference between this one and the first scenario where it comes down just slightly, or even just trading sideways, is that it comes down quite deep back to somewhere near the selling climax or the second test. All right, so 3 different scenarios. Let's get to the daily chart and see how it looks like for Algo, whether there are any trend change confirmation coming. So last week when we talked about this, I mentioned these 2 time points. Okay, one It's pointing towards mid-December, which we are already exactly on that date, so it's not going to happen unless some miracle or very great news came out in the very last 5.5 hours of today's candlestick. So it poked straight through the ceiling of this air hockey table. This blue box, if you're new, I call them air hockey tables. Some people like to call them channels. Basically, why air hockey table is that it helps you visualize these candlesticks or the track. This is basically the track of the puck. It travels or bounces between the two edges of the table as well as the center line. So imagine if you're playing air hockey, that's how it travels within this table. And that's why I use this name instead of channel, because there's something for you to visualize. Like the puck is now bouncing, it bounces 2 times in mid-November, came back down to bounce November 21st. Currently, after last week's session, it dropped below the previous yellow dash intermediate level at around 13 cents. Now heading towards challenging the red key level of 10 cents. So where does this lines come from? If you're new, again, I just look at what happened in the past, and those periods where frequent trading activities see these levels. So that's why you see, previously the past 2 weeks it bounces a few times along this line, and then there are still some people selling, pushing the price further down. Currently, yesterday, today, is trying to stay along here. So whenever you look at these, you'll always find something in the history that the price came down to similar level. That's why it's seeing some sort of rebound, some people getting in at those points. All right. Of course, the exception is that there are some altcoins that are seeking their all-time low. Then in their history, obviously you won't be able to find the references. Okay, that's the exception to what I said just now. But still, if we look at this line, assuming, let's get rid of this text, assuming the price stabilizes at this level and doesn't go back down and just do sideways trading, now is heading towards mid-January for a trend change confirmation from this downtrend air hockey table to at least a sideways trend, if not an uptrend. Okay? If we look at the Wyckoff stage, it can do a sideways or it can bounce up. I already explained earlier, so I'm not going to repeat. Okay, that's enough for Algo. Very long start because the very first one I tend to explain a little bit longer. So for the subsequent ones, I'm not going to repeat, and you already get the idea of like all these bounces and all that. So AMP. So for AMP, it's going through again similarly a mid-late stage testing period, paper hands, diamond hands. The volume similarly coming down. So we're hoping to see the same thing. For the case of AMP, the difference is that it did not have a sign of strength. However, it's not a must for a sign of strength to happen, like what happened over here. The automatic rally was set. This one, the volume wasn't actually that high. There were 3 consecutive weeks, and you can consider you have accumulated volume. You have cumulative volume that you can consider that a sign of strength, but the price didn't go higher than the automatic rally. So this case, this can happen one more time. Automatic rally, there was 4 consecutive weeks of price climb. Doesn't really challenge the blue key level of 0.00447. And look at what happened November 2024. Again, 5 straight weeks of white candles, no retracement, no sideways trading. Okay, you can say it retraced within the week, but looking at the weekly chart, there's no red candle in between. Very similar to Algo. So while I put a tag here, hoping to see it come challenge at least the 0.0047 blue key level, best the purple key level of 0.0055, with pretty high volume or consecutive weeks of reasonably high or like around average or above average volume. Okay, now let's get to the daily chart. Well, what does the air hockey table looks like? Currently it's trading on the stronger half of the table. It came down like below the red key level of 0.002. If we look to the left, the dip back in October 2023 went even lower than the white solid line. That's the bottom of the long-term playground zone. That sits around 0.0015. Nothing more in history. There's only a dinosaur. Okay, so here, if it really comes down to this level, don't be surprised. Okay, yesterday's candlestick. Okay, there's this bar over here, so I have to zoom in real large. So yesterday, the volume was about average, so not as bad as what happened. If we have a volume bar like December 1st, that's a bit more worrying. But as of this moment, it's like it's just coming back down to the center line, this blue dash line of the air hockey table, and it's trying to, linger along like what it did since November 14th. So over a month, it's been traveling along this center line. It's still doing the same. December 1st, even though I said the volume bar is a bit scary, if it applies to the same scenario to yesterday. The candlestick on December 1st actually has a long way coming from the 0.002 red key level, pushing the price back up. So there was quite a bit of people buying, pushing the price back to above the center line of the downward channel or the air hockey table. So that's, I consider, a slightly positive sign. Alright? While it's still traveling along this downtrend, let's take a look. Assuming it bounces back to above the red key level of 0.002, that's pointing towards the date around mid-January. So if it bounces back up, travels along this triangle, we will see a trend change confirmation by mid-Jan. Alright? If it doesn't, however, if it really comes down to see the level where the October 23rd tested, so that's where the air hockey table ceiling points to, right? That's somewhere near the end of February, around February 24th. So it can come down, stays above the center line, travel sideways, bounce between the red and the white key levels, gets to near the tip of the triangle, and then confirms that, hey, we have bottomed out finally. Alright, that's scenario 2, assuming this trend continues. It has already missed the mark to break out at this point. We're exactly on that date. So it's pretty similar to Algo for AMP. Now, let's move on to RWA, AR. Here, RWA also seeking to low, even below the long-term playground zone bottom. That's where, again, October 20, 2023. Just that this box is not horizontal. Some of them I intentionally make it slightly trending upwards for, say, like Bitcoin or Ethereum for the inflation factor, but for the others, it's not the case. So let's adjust them. I'll tidy these up because this is not bounding the top of RWA at the moment. So what is this over here is that it's seemingly trying to find support along this white line, but it's still a test of paper hands, diamond hands, because why it's still coming down? Because October 10th hinted what can happen, right? It can go as low as $1.27. That's a very big indication of whether it's small fishes like us or even like some whales are willing to turn into paper hands when that kind of news come out. Alright, they're just going to abandon ship. It hinted it can go that low. That's why it's still trying to test for lower levels. So this, assume that's the worst case scenario, hope that's the case, but obviously people would say, no, it's going to go to 0. Yeah, that's a possibility, but how highly possible that is, that's the question, right? So here, going back to the Wyckoff, this is what we are hoping to see again, the sign of strength. So this time, compared to the other two we talked about, there was a bit of price climb above or challenge the same level, orange key level of $9.06, back in mid-July. But after that, it's only during the first week of November 3rd, it came with this challenge, just that it got rejected or hammered heavily back to below the red key level, $6.32. We want to see something like that. We can give this attack a sign of strength, but next time when it happens, match this volume and also give us a clear signal that it stays at least somewhere near where the automatic rally close. Okay, don't go back to below another key level. That's something we hope to see if the sign of strength actually comes back. If it's the other scenario where it goes straight up without a sign of strength, then that's another story. So this is a good example. We've got a sign of strength and then there is a bit of retracement. That's exactly what I described during the algorithm explanation. Alright, let's get to the daily chart. So it's basically traveling along a horizontal trend. So I haven't drawn any air hockey table. You can treat the orange line, the orange key level line, as well as this white line as the two boundaries, the ceiling and the bottom of the air hockey table. And the red line is where the center line is. Currently it's trading at the weaker side. So the way to identify potential breakout or higher chance of breaking out is by looking at the volume. So the red ones, even though the volume is high, the price spread isn't. So it's like a change of hands happening. So the bulls and the bears, or the paper hands and the diamond hands, people willing to get in, are exchanging stocks of Algo. Today, the white candle, we want to see something even higher volume. At least something like the ones in late November. Best, of course, is beginning of November. Those are the volumes that we would like to see. That's probably around, 6 to 7 times of what we are seeing as of today. Alright, so that's for our width. Let's hope it stays within this horizontal trend. It came down around the end of October, similar to what we are seeing now. But it always ends up across. So you see this red cross over here, the white cross over here. Let's hope this repeats and it comes back up. Okay? Not going back to this October 10th crazy level. Alright? That's a possibility, not a must. As long as the test, during the paper hands, diamond hands test, there were no more people willing to sell. It's not going to go to there. But if the macro environment changes, the capital flow changes, then that's another story. So now for BDX, BELDEX, we talked about this. It's still within the distribution cycle. So like I said in the very beginning, people said, hey, there's no altcoin season, this is a bear market. But this one example, there are many, that they're still in distribution. So for this, it's coming up, going even higher than the upthrust. I added these PSY2s, AR2s, so you can relate to the PSYs and automatic reaction of the buying climax. Just that these are for the upthrust. Alright, so this one, it seems like it's trying to head to show us an upthrust of the distribution, setting another high. So I think in the Ripple session that I did just earlier, I mentioned that there's such a possibility, okay? As long as it stays long enough when the positive narrative comes, or gets very close, the market front runs those news, and then the smart money, they sell when the news come, okay? Some of these would happen this way, and when that happens, that's the upwards of the distribution. The volume themselves, however, you see it's getting a little bit lower now, right? Compared to this period, which, be really careful, these white bars, if you look at the candlestick, this particular week, the very first week of November, alright, that volume actually comes with quite a bit of selling from above the yellow key level of 0.087. So that could be a warning. While people are FOMOing in at this stage, the volume is actually lower than what we had during late October, early November. Alright, be really cautious. Okay, it's like musical chair, okay? So, what's next after that? It may come down for an AR3 in my terminology. So just the automatic reaction, like what you see for the buying climax. Alright? Automatic reaction corresponds to the upwards of the distribution. And subsequently, it may bounce a bit to the LPSY, where the whales, whoever got in, around here, or even here, they start to offload whatever they have on hand, and then the price starts to slide according to the Wyckoff method. So let's go to the daily view. So here we talk about this uptrend, and after our last session, it's still going up. So it passes through the yellow key level of 0.068 with, let's show the volume, a pretty good volume just 3 days ago on Saturday. Alright, it's interesting, right? During the weekend it did this, but currently it's going to face the challenge of the green key level of 0.094. It tested this level back in September. Now it's going to test it the third time, because the second time, back in early November, it wasn't successful. Basically, it bounces back. And even before reaching the green, you'll probably notice that this is the center line of the uptrend air hockey table. Alright, that's where, if I change it to a line chart, you see the price clearly bounced off from the center line. And it's getting very close. There's a dual resistance right now, both the center line of the air hockey table and this green key level. So let's see whether this dual resistance is going to give it a hit and then push it back to at least the yellow key level, if not the bottom of the air hockey table. And if that's the case, there's an interesting thing happening. Look at how this flattens and then came down, right? If that happens, like I said, it's going to flatten. And will it come down and breaks the uptrend? That's the big question. And to that point, that's pointing somewhere near end of Jan, somewhere near end of Jan all through February. Alright? Because there is a time point over here if we extend the air hockey table. Let's extend it, passes through, so the bottom passes through the green line, the green key level 0.094. Here, we see this in like triangle over here, right? This points towards the mid of March. So if it stays long enough above not only the yellow key level, but also the bottom edge of the trend or the air hockey table, that's pointing towards mid-March, that it has to confirm whether a trend change is there. Either it breaks the green and continues to set the upwards of the distribution, like I said in the beginning, or it drops outside of this uptrend, officially confirming the trend is over. Whether it continues with a sideways trend or a downtrend, that's another story. The key is that the uptrend is finished by then. Alright, So that's another thing that I want to share with you by looking at the chart. Next one, Casper. Yay, Casper fans. There we go. Casper is back on the menu. Here, seeking very deep, all-time low. Alright, this is one of the examples. So I'm not going to repeat all these because you know what's going to happen. It had a sign of strength. And then we may see the second one, or it may just go up straight. But last time, there are two times, okay? This one was very quick accumulation during late 2023. This over here, however, you see after the sign of strength, it came down very deep. Even when it went up again, there was a bit of sideways movement, the last point of support per stage, before it heads towards the distribution. So that's why I leave all these tags over here. So while we are hoping for the price to go up, there can be stages or like following tests to follow. Even if it pumps up a little, it can still come back. Alright, that's how the big guys play the game, right? Maximizing their profit. So, a hockey table, Casper still trending down, but staying on the stronger side of the channel, or the a hockey table. Unfortunately, it passes both these intermediate levels that's set by the near-term trend. Alright, that means it's still not stabilizing. If we look to the left, there's nothing all the way into the dinosaur age, maybe Jurassic or something else, that we don't get any reference. There's one thing we want to see, however. I'm looking at this chart because this gives us the longest history. But if we look at another chart that gives us some volume information, the volume currently still isn't very low. So there may still be more downward seeking to come. Alright? It's not something that we want to see, however, this seems to me, looking at the candlesticks and the volume, we want to see something like this on October 27th or November 1st. A very low volume and then finishing off. Best with some crosses or like a T shape. Okay, what I mean is that the bulls and the bears agree, okay, we have bottomed out. Or even something like this. It will try to get lower, but somebody pushes it real hard. Alright, that looks like a pin over there. We want to see those, but it's not happening yet. It's actually having wicks at the top, so that's a bit worrying. So for Casper, the exploration towards the south still continues, and while there are no levels for us to refer to, we just need some form of indication, like what happened over the past 2-3 weeks. A bit of sideways trading that sets in like a near-term support. Then we can take reference and see where it's pointing to. Of course, it can bounce back and get its sideways movement along these lines. Alright? If that happens, assuming it bottoms out around the current level at 0.005, let's say that's the case. Not even 0.005, 0.00485. Okay, let's assume that's the case. This points to 20th of Jan. This points to Jan 12th. This points to 4th of Jan. So 3 consecutive weeks of potential trend change confirmation, depending on how the price move in the next week or two. Alright, Christmas is near. We're only roughly a week away from Christmas, so let's hope there's nothing too crazy happening, dragging the price of Casper even further down. Next, DEXE. DEXE, early stage of accumulation, seemingly getting to the selling climax, or about to reveal the selling climax. Remember, the subsequent test can go even lower, okay? Well, we expect a rebound from the selling climax to the automatic rally, where it sets the horizontal trading range top. And when we get to the daily chart, we see this downtrend still going on. However, you notice we start to see these crosses that I just mentioned in Casper's chart, right? And the volume is very low. So I consider that's kind of positive, right? If, however, when the price travels to this ceiling and get rejected, come down to challenge the white solid line, that points to a trend change confirmation at around the first week of Jan, around Jan 6. It can break out earlier, just that we can have a reference point when it comes. That's not the lowest point if we see where the October 10th tested. Okay, that's a bit scary, right? We definitely don't want to see that. However, at least during November 22nd all the way to October 2023, similar to some of the projects we covered earlier, that period came down to test the white solid line. Okay, that's why, while October 10th, the about 15 cents level may not be likely, just a possibility, the chance of the price coming down to the the white key level is, still having solid reference. While the price has come down below the red key level, let's borrow this and draw a line so that we know why the price is pausing at this point. Okay, let's draw a few lines in case it really comes down further. So we have references, alright, as to where it may pause. Okay, not necessarily stopping, but pausing. So there are quite a number of intermediate levels that may provide support or resistance when it comes back up, before that catastrophic October 10th level. So see, I wasn't looking at this side, it was so small. When I draw this, I don't see what's happening on the right hand side. Interestingly, it's pausing at the level where the October 2023 or November 2022 tested. Currently, the price is trying to stay above this level. Alright, if that's the case, if it successfully stays above this yellow line, good news. The trend change confirmation would come earlier, even before Christmas. Alright, that's very optimistic. And if it doesn't, if it goes to the next, that points to right after Boxing Day. Not too bad. Unbox your present. Confirm the change. Then end of the year, beginning of year, around 3rd of January, and eventually the 6th of January. So multiple breakout confirmation opportunity coming. Assuming this is like what I said, the red volume is coming down, stabilizing. Finger crossed that's the case. So next, FET, Artificial Super Intelligence Alliance, very long name. So let's keep it with FET. Alright. It has gone through the early stage of accumulation. Currently still going through the paper hands, diamond hands testing. However, it seems to stabilize this above the red key level of 19 cents. So let's remove these percentages. There's no point guessing them already, because we know everybody is in this. Not everybody, but most people, most projects are going through this phase. And eventually, according to the method, those may appear. So, not going to repeat, those three scenarios: straight up, retracement, or come down lower. So that's where FET is at daily chart. it's basically going through a horizontal trading period, so mostly staying below this orange key level of 34 cents, but at the same time staying above the red key level of 19 cents. It's still doing this, while after last week's session, it tried to break above this white dashed line. That's the level set by the recent trading activities. And if we look to the left, also during the period in summer 2023, that was the accumulation top, the trading range top during that time. Currently, the price is trading right below that level, getting rejection on Saturday. Now seems to be stabilizing at the current point where we see the recent support over the past 2 weeks, and also during October, late October. All right, let me change that line color so we can differentiate. If you look to the left, we also see similar support and resistance along this line back in that same period, and even earlier, back in February 2022. So that's where the price is at right now, showing us the support and this equilibrium position, this red cross created by the bulls and the bears. All right, let's get rid of these. So volume, not exactly low, but like I said, if there are wicks at both the bottom and the top, I'm not too worried about it. I'm more worried about a long wick at the top, a long body at the bottom, no wick from the bottom, and it's red. That's the most worrying. These, the bulls and the bears are doing tug of war, and hopefully we'll get over this soon. All right. Next, GLM. For GLM, it seemingly has finished one big test back in October, early November, but like I said, it can definitely come back down, and it didn't. This leg up didn't even go past the light blue key level of 30 cents. So again, we will hope to see this with volume best staying above the light blue key level and challenge the blue key level of 36 cents like what it did during the automatic rally. Alright, that's what we hope to see, and you know what's going to, those three scenarios that's going to come after. Alright, daily chart. GLM, it dropped below the uptrend support. Let's adjust this then. Alright, we have to make adjustments, because earlier there were only like 3-4 reference points, and usually when a trend first starts, that's always the case that we need to make adjustments later on, so that the initial steeper slope, you see the center line, right? The initial steeper climb or descent, along with time, we'll see them turns more gradual, or sometimes the other way around. So that's normal. Okay, now that it's trying to bounce from the bottom of the air hockey table, just that it found rejection for 5 consecutive days, or even this day as well, 6 days in total. This yellow resistance line of 22 cents is very strong, this resistance. Let's hope that it doesn't come further down. We can still, there's still a slight room to adjust this air hockey table, but not too much. You see these 2 wicks over there. So let's hope it stays over there, and if that's the case, that means the trend change confirmation will come somewhere right after Christmas, okay, or even around the Christmas time, okay, when it still continue to trade within this narrow range. Not that it can't. Look at these small candles, right? It still can. So if that confirms that the stock uptrend is going to continue, that's slight good news. Okay, if it doesn't, if it trades sideways, we know that's normal, because we already see it's still within this period. Even if it's trade sideways, that's understandable. All right, that this range is pretty broad. Okay, it can come down to orange key level 0.17, go back up. All right, you get the idea. Whether it's going to challenge the 0.12 red key level, like what it did during 2020, not zero chance. Look at what happened during that October 10th week. It came down to between the orange and the red. But that's a very pessimistic scenario that we don't want to see happen. Okay, just that it's got a slight chance. GRT, the graph. Okay, is again in the mid-late stage of the accumulation cycle. I wouldn't say it's very late stage, because what happened for some coins, you know, since 2002 all the way into 2004, that almost 2-year period for some. This time, this has came in for a full year already. So it may be 50% if it's like similar to what happened, you know, 3-4 years back. Okay, we have passed the midpoint if this accumulation cycle is same as long. Again, sign of strength is what we hope to see, or some behavior with high volume, price climb, price spread increasing, like a sign of strength shows. Something that's, you know, these kind of behavior is something that we want to see. Whether there's retracement or not, whether we tag it as SOS or not, that's not the key point. The key point is these volumes, these kind of actions. All right. Daily chart for the graph is still trading at the weaker side of the air hockey table. However, you know, it's trying to stay close to the center line, so that's not as bad as coming straight to the bottom and find support. However, if we look to the left, there's not really a reference point we can get at this point. So it is trading at in a no man's zone, uncharted, basically. So the only hope we have is to see, or is to wish for seeing lower red volume, you know, smaller price spread. But as of this moment, yesterday, it is still not convincing that the price is stabilizing. So, like Casper, expect that, you know, the test may go deeper. All right, and then we have injective protocol, INJ. INJ may be near showing the selling climax. Alright, the long wicks from the top last week, getting rejection from the orange key level of $6.03 was the thing that worries me. But this week we're seeing wicks on both sides, so it may be finding some intermediate support between the red key level of 4.35 to the orange level that we just talked about. Looking to the left, not too far in history, back in March, not much, let's say May 2022, all the way to March 2023, that particular period, it tested the very low point, setting the long-term playground zone bottom. October 10th came to around that level. So looking at these candlesticks where, you know, that where they first came to find support for this one, and these get to set the top for the range, that's where the October 10th event landed. Okay, if we draw a line across here, that's very close to where the October 10th landed. Alright, so we don't want to see the price coming back to that level of around $2.50. So let's get to the daily chart and see what's going on over there. Here, good news is that it's trading on the stronger side, even though it's slightly trending downwards, but it's getting very close to the trend confirmation time point. That's right at New Year's Eve, or right at New Year. So whether we'll get good news before 2026 or right on the day where we say Happy New Year, there are only about 2 weeks left to find out. Alright, so let's see what's going to happen to Injective. The volume itself isn't too worrying, just that we want to see higher or taller volume bars for the white days, not with a long wick from the top though, okay? Not like December 9th. It got rejected from the ceiling of the downtrend air hockey table as well as the orange key level of 6.03. That's not something we want to see. We want to see high volume combined with closing above those resistance. Next, Chainlink. Chainlink. Alright, that's I consider that's a selling climax. Let's remove the percentages. And press the wrong button. Here, assuming that the automatic rally that sets the top of the horizontal trading top, that's around the orange key level of $15.20. Okay? The bottom is somewhere near, well, it's not the absolute bottom. I'm saying just, the bottom or the low set by the selling climax and the retracement from the automatic rally was around 11 cents 70. This can be just a temporary low, not the actual low of the accumulation cycle. Look at what happened over here. It can go way deeper. October 10th actually went to the level where the selling climax reached back in August 2024. Alright, that's a level along the center line of the long-term playground zone at around $8.20. Just want to flatten this line. Let's unlock it. Yeah, $8.20. That's where it's sitting. However, I did share in the past sessions that this yellow trend line, except the October 10th event, that started since June 2023. Currently, the price is still staying above this trend line. Let's see how long this would last. Okay? If that's the case, and it continues the accumulation cycle above this yellow dash trend line, that's very interesting because it's getting higher and higher low in the case of Chainlink, and that may be a positive sign. However, it's not the end of the story. You also see this white trend line. That's a lower or descending peaks that started even earlier from 2021. Subsequent, there's no more distribution cycle after that, efforts of the distribution, until this point, March 2024. There was another one, but that was a pretty low distribution top. Alright, and fast forward to December of the same year, it actually climbed back to setting this trend line. And again, August 2025 landed lower than the trend line, or hitting right at the trend line. So that's the part that is both interesting and worrying, because it seems like it's getting into a wedge. Okay, what's going to happen next? Either go up or go down? That's to anybody's guess, and that's somewhere around summer of 2027. Okay, let's see whether the price will continue to travel along this wedge. By then, when we get to summer 2027, that's going to be a big reveal party where Chainlink is going to head to. Daily chart. Downtrend. Yeah, it hasn't confirmed yet, and actually it broke below the red key level of $13.10, just trying to start stabilizing around that point. If it successfully climbs back up to above the red line, that's pointing towards December 29th. So around the end of the year, we'll get a confirmation whether this downtrend is going to be over if it stays above the red key level. However, if it doesn't, if it comes back down to this yellow dashed line, that's where the previous, at the beginning of the month as well as November 21st found support. That's around $11.55. That's pointing towards January 10th. So if it comes down to trouble like this, then by that point, it has to confirm like whether this downtrend is going to continue or is it going to break outside to form a new trend, whether it's sideways or it's upwards. We'll find out by then. Alright, that's for Chainlink. Next, LPT. So LPT, again, going through testing period. The SOSA is what we hope to see. In the daily chart, here, again, downtrend, but a red cross appearing with lower volume, the slightly positive sign, is pointing towards somewhere around Boxing Day that we may get a confirmation that the trend is changing. Otherwise, October 10th tested all the way to $2.15 or 16 cents. Going to the left, April 2025, not too far back in history. It went tested this white solid level of around $3.15. So that's where the price is reaching or trying to find support right now. Even further up, around June 2023, similar level, this white line. Okay, so not the first time that we have visited this area. Actually, 3 times in the history, October 10th obviously went through. The other 2 times came close enough. So that's for LPT. Near, big picture, seeking low after 2 signs of strengths. You see there can be multiple, and there may be a third one as well. Sometimes you can see a 4th or even 5th. And at this moment in time, it has dropped below this yellow dash line. This, let's say, what happens if I turn to 100? Okay, yeah, that's where we get the line from. All right, we wanted to go further to the right-hand side as well. Unfortunately, it didn't find support. And the next, before the October 10th level, is somewhere around here. All right, $1.46 or 47 cents. Currently, it seems to find support and bounces off from that level. Not that it's over, but October 10th, let's see, if we look to the left, you see these candlesticks crosses, right? These 2 changes. And subsequently there's another bunch right over here. So October 10th didn't go as low as this. It topped right over there, around $1.40. So let's get to the daily chart because the volume is getting very low and we've got long wicks from the bottom. Let's see whether it's showing us something. Yeah, the price trend, the downtrend confirmation has come. So it has confirmed that it has turned sideways. That's what we talked about last week, probably, because Tuesday last week it has already confirmed, for a couple of days. Just that this time, instead of a horizontal trend between this yellow dash line of around $1.61 to $1.82-83, it traveled deeper. So I said just earlier that whether it comes out as a horizontal trend or starting a downtrend, that's something we'll find out after it happens, right? So there are 2 choices we can make. Either we treat them short-term trends and give them smaller air hockey tables, or we treat them as bigger ones. So let's drag it over here like this. All right. Let's try to bracket them all. So you see interesting thing over here. Over the past 7 days, it has been traveling along this resistance line, or the top edge of the air hockey table. And currently, it's pointing towards December 18th, 19th. So 2-3 days from now. Again, is it going through a downtrend like we're drawing? Or is it going to confirm that, okay, that's enough. We're going to move sideways from that point onwards, setting the 1.47 as the bottom for this sideways trading range. Okay, that we'll find out in 2 days. If, however, this time it does go sideways, can we adjust further? There's not much room. There's still a little bit of room because this has set the edge actually. So that's December 18th, 19th. It's a very critical time point. Once it's confirmed, we have to draw another air hockey table. You know, this time we can't do the same thing over here. It's probably just to take reference starting from near the end of November. So in 2-3 days time, we'll know what's coming for near. And from the big picture point of view and the volume point of view, it may be getting close to stabilizing. Next, ONDO. ONDO similar look and feel to a couple of others, including near. Just that it's seeking lower point, but again with no long wicks from the bottom. The volume is getting lower, so that's one slightly positive sign. After the red key level of 0.61, if we look to the left, there are some references we can find, but those are not very strong. Reason being, there's not much overlap trading. Okay, at most 2 candlesticks or 3. For my definition, I want to see at least 4. So you see this level over here, right? If I draw a line for these 4 candlesticks, if we cut across, that was actually the resistance for the past 3 weeks. Alright? That's the thing I'm talking about. If we draw a line over here, yeah, we are closing, or the current candle is trying to stay around this line. But if you look at here, there are one wick and one head, one tail over there. It's not very strong. It's not a surprise if it comes down to test the white level. Okay, that's currently sitting at around 19 cents. So it's a shaky setup for ONDO right now. Again, these stages are what we are hoping to see. I'm not going to repeat. Downtrend continuing, trading on the stronger side. We have drawn these reference lines, and it's not exactly trading horizontal, it's trending downwards. Just that these 2 days we see some wicks from the bottom, some bulls are getting in, trying to stabilizing the price, and that's slightly relieving until the point we get to see these kind of tests. Alright, I'm just trying to see whether there are any additional references. So for this one, I'd rather move it a little bit lower. Yeah, somewhere around this point, as we've got more references. Yeah, we may be able to get one more around here, and other around here. Okay, if you ask me, are there more reference levels that we can find if the downtrend continues? So this point to near the end of the year, if I extend the box further, and let's see whether that's intact. Yeah, that looks fine. And like I said, this points to somewhere around December 29th, 20 or 30th. One thing I haven't said, that's why you're not seeing it. Not that it's too bad. Let's draw it for now. That's December 30th. And this points to Jan 8th, somewhere around Jan 8th. This is further down around late January, if we extend the air hockey table further. Let's assume it's staying above this line. According to the trends, this is the scenario that's pointing towards end of the year, okay? Next, a little bit pessimistic. That's pointing towards end of first week or beginning of second week of Jan, around Jan 8th to Jan 9th, that we're going to get a confirmation about potential trend change. All right, quant, QNT. I explained two scenarios that's probably playing out. One is part of the preliminary support stage, an early accumulation stage, or is reaccumulating, meaning it may come back to the distribution. Actually, it's part of the accumulation, I would say. Part of the distribution. It may come back up to another challenge for the distribution. So it's either one of these two. Looking at the volume, it's getting very low, so it may find support and then come back to challenge. Whether it stops at the green key level of 91 or the 99.9 light blue key level, or even to the 108.5 blue key level like what it did just 3 weeks ago, we will soon find out. So it's not definitive yet as to which side it's heading. It can be this, while across the board more seems to be in the accumulation than distribution. But I also shared this view here. After the buying climax, there was a smaller test back in 2022, early 2023, and then it came down, right? But that's not over yet. Okay, it came down, do some sideways trading, take a dip, sideways trading, take a dip, and then it created two mini peaks. So you can say that's a very high accumulation. Okay, you can totally treat that as a full accumulation cycle over there. And then here, those two. So would it happen the same? Let's say if this is the first, not this one correspond to this one, then it may come up for a second round. Just that this time is lower. Alright? That time it was lower as well, but this time it is way lower. Of course those won't be exactly the same, but it may happen another time. Daily. Sideways trend, doesn't need to explain a lot. The volume climbed, but then slightly or slowly declined to where we are. And if it bounces once again from the orange key level of around $70, like what it did 2 times before, beginning end of November 2 times, then it will return and challenge the blue levels. Like I said, that's a potential. However, if we look to the left, if it really comes down to accumulate, then it can possibly pass through the orange this time after two trials and come to challenge the 60.5 level or even lower at around 50. The good news is that if we look at what happened on October 10th, it didn't come too low. Alright, not like some other altcoins. So everybody is different. So let's hope it stays horizontal, if not if it goes deeper, let's hope it doesn't go too deep. The funny thing is that this sign of weakness is so deep to the red key level that honestly I want to tag this as an accumulation cycle, but it was so brief, about 4 or 5 weeks time, and then it started to climb again. So you can treat this as a quick accumulation, and then you can tag a buying climax and up thrust over here. But I rather make it simple, because looking at the volume themselves, it doesn't look to me that's like a selling climax. It was still too high. Okay, compared to what we see over here. So that's why I didn't do it that way. Next, render. Render, again, testing paper hands, diamond hands, testing the red key level now of 1.22, price spread lowering, volume lowering, so it may come to challenge the 126. If not, the October 10th challenge the white solid line down there at around 40 cents. That was also the period 2022 summer all the way to end of 2022 stayed around. Alright, so it's not something new for render. Looking at the air hockey table, unfortunately all three intermediate support has been broken. Okay, looking at the left. Of course, there are more references that we can take at this level, and then at this level, and this level, before it challenges the red. But like I said, these dashed lines aren't as solid as the key levels. That's why I don't call them key levels. One after another, it may take a pause, look at these wicks, look at this wick, and look at these two candles. It may take a pause, but then eventually it's going to break downwards. Volume getting lower, so hopefully it's bottoming out. It's trying to get to the stronger side of the air hockey table. You see the past 7 days coming from the weaker side, trying to stay above the stronger side. So let's ignore the dashed line for now. That's way too much. Here, it looks like a 6-7 lane traffic, right? Here, let's use the red key level. That's pointing towards 25th of January. So by that time, we'll get a confirmation, assuming it stays above the red, irrespective of which white dashed line it stays above. The latest for the red is January 25th. That will get a trend change confirmation from a downtrend to potentially a horizontal or even an uptrend. Okay, because of this testing period that's been lasted for that long and that deep. RSR. RSR, still early stage of accumulation. The panic seemingly isn't over yet. So you know what's going to come next according to the Wyckoff method. Let's go straight into the daily chart. Here, I will adjust the box instead of declaring it has exited the downtrend because there was so few reference points. So we've got one over here, and now we've got the third bunch of references. Let's enlarge and adjust it tighter and see where it's pointing to. So it's currently bouncing off from the ceiling of the playground or the air hockey table. This points to originally December 21st, just 5 days from now, but the price continues trending downwards, and the volume, especially this day on the 12th, I mentioned, right? I don't want to see wick from the top. And this day actually combined with high volume. So that's not a good sign. So that's why it's trying to seek to the level where the October 10th went. Somewhere near 0.0018. That's the way I see it. It is definitely trying to get to retest that level. Just drawing the center line over here. The slightly positive over here is that it's still traveling on the stronger side of the air hockey table. I just want to change the color. Alright, so if it doesn't come back before the December 21st, what's going to happen? What date we're going to expect? This points to January 10th of Jan. Alright, that's where very close to October 10th tested. If we look to the left, again, we see something in the same period, September 2023. So that's for RSR. Next, Maple Finance, syrup. Maple Finance, let's take a look. It's at a really early stage of accumulation. That's an interesting one because that's a very short period of panic selling. And then we've got 3 red crosses that may be signaling that the selling climax is there. There's still over 5 days left for this week's candle, even though we started as a red cross where the bulls and bears are almost at equal strength. That's not the end of the story yet, right? You know. And there's a whole bunch of stages of accumulation cycle waiting. So let's take a quick look at this. This, looking at the smaller trend, it definitely has confirmed that it has exited and formed the sideways trading zone. Currently trading below the light blue key level of 27 cents while staying above the green key level of 0.236. I'm trying to see if this is actually something of a bigger downtrend. So that's horizontal. What happened in November pushes it down. Okay, let's make a big assumption. Like I said, right? The trend changes from a very steep trend to a more gradual trend. So if we extend this, taking more references, it's a bit like you use the moving averages, okay? We're just extending from like a 20 days to a 50 days. So what we are seeing here is that obviously within this very short trend, it has broken outside of that sharp downtrend. But if we expand the trend and average it out, if this is a more gradual downtrend, it certainly has traveled from the weaker side of the air hockey table towards the stronger side. And to that, if we extend this, what this is pointing to is for 2 references, okay? One, that's 1st of Jan. The next, Jan 8th. So 2 dates to confirm, right, whether it is going to trade sideways from a longer term perspective, not just 1 or 2 weeks, okay? If we use the previous box, that's not going to measure that. So the coming 3 weeks is going to confirm whether this is actually the case, that it's going to stay above the green key level, not going any further down. Looking at the volume, the red crosses, so low volume combined with the stabilization, that's probably very close, and the chance of that we get a confirmation is more likely than going the other way. Just that, you know, those lower levels happened back in this year, you know, not far back in history. It was actually January to April that, you know, it tested lower than the red key level of 14 cents 90. All right, so that's Maple Finance. Next, Tau, BitTensor. So here, again, it's probably somewhere around preliminary support. and the selling climax. Last week I talked about, like, I don't think that's, last week is where the selling climax low is going to be, and it's definitely this week is still trying to seek that low point. October 10th obviously went all the way to this white dash line at around $142. No point in history for Tau has gone to that low. Remember, these younger coins with less than 2 years of history, there's little we can borrow from the price profiles. So we can only, based on this limited history that we have, to measure where it's going to test next. So if it falls through the 254, 219 is the next support level, looking at the selling climaxes back in July 2024 as well as March 2025. Obviously, October 10th, I already mentioned, it went way deeper. That's proving what I said. Young coins, we never know how far they can go. Alright, the two other tests back in the accumulation cycles in summer 2024, spring 2025, they ended up higher than the 183, 182 level. So if it really comes down, let's hope that it doesn't go lower than that 182, 183 level. Let's go to the daily. Again, it has exited that sharp downtrend. However, if we do the same thing, even though it kind of looks like it has been staying above the orange key level of 254, just for the sake of measuring whether that's confirmed even for a bigger or wider measurement. Okay, all these wicks are pretty much inside the trend. Currently is edging down, and the date we're looking at, it's around December 20th or 21st, assuming it doesn't go lower than the orange key level. If it does, then December 29th is where the ceiling crosses the red key level. Alright, so we are adjusting along the way. If there is like a mini Wyckoff measurement, which I've already put in these tags before, not that I'm going to cover in detail in these speed run sessions, that seemingly is possible, unless it's going to come down for a spring. So instead of a test, it's a spring after the sign of strength that it goes deeper to really push hard to see, are those diamond hands really diamond, or are they just paper diamonds? Okay, that's for Tau. Then, Tau coin. Well, we are not too far. There are still a couple of more, but we are close. So, Tau coin, somewhere in distribution cycle. I'm not sure whether I call that a mid stage or late stage, because it's been exhibiting this sideways trading that's pretty weird for a prolonged period since February this year, or like counting from this low point mid-March this year. It doesn't want to come down, it doesn't want to go up, and I have actually put in a question: is it actually reaccumulating, trying to shoot to an upthrust or at least a second test past the purple key level of 0.00 line that goes all the way to somewhere 0.012. Alright, that's a big question, whether it's doing that, because this volume over here, that's huge. Counting from somewhere at the beginning of the climb, back in November, December 2024. This volume was actually higher than the week where we had the buying climax. Alright, so it's not something normal in my view. If this is like a high level accumulation, that may well be a sign of strength. And the red volume is coming lower as well. So if this is really going through an uptrend, who knows what's going to happen, right? like I said, I already mentioned, there's a chance of that, but we never know. Okay, so let's assume that it stays within this distribution for a little longer and not coming back to the accumulation, which, no, it wasn't too far during the sign of weakness in the very first week of November. It actually gone into the range where the previous accumulation cycle back in 2002 all the way into early 2004 was at. Okay, that's sign of weakness is actually below the ceiling of that range. Daily, so obviously it had a downtrend, and then it bounces up, breaking that downtrend, and then now it started another new downtrend. But as I mentioned, if it is having this uptrend line, and the past 2 days seems to be finding support from this uptrend line instead of the, well, obviously it closed above the blue key level of 0.004. Currently, actually today opened over there as well. Then here, this dual support is providing some effect, but not long ago it went and tested this with a very strong buy. That's why I guess is getting quite a bit of support over here, and the volume, the red volume, isn't that bad. It's actually pretty low, so that's what is going to support the potential continuing of this uptrend for at least a short while, until it comes to challenge somewhere around the yellow key level of 0.006 or all the way to the light blue key level of 0.0071. As long as this uptrend line, support line, doesn't get broken. So that's Talcoin. And now we get to THETA. THETA, again, deep test, very deep test period, and you know what to expect in the next, right? So quickly into the daily. Let's remove that thing. It's continuing trading at the lower half of the trend or the air hockey table, but there's some positive sign that it seems to be finding support from the orange key level of 0.318 and is trading sideways towards the stronger side of the box. Again, 3 scenarios to make it simple. While it can still be very optimistic to challenge the Jan 1st breakout point, there's still a possibility to go up to challenge that, but let's assume these 3 points are the more likely case. So pessimistic case, that gets to early April. Okay, assume it doesn't go any further below the orange. That points to the end of Feb. This one points to end of January. So if it climbs above the yellow and trades within this triangle, that is going to confirm that by end of January, the trend change. Okay, it's still a little bit far from now, like a month and a half at least, but it's getting there for THETA. Alright, October 10th obviously challenged the red key level of 0.195, so that's why I said that's a pessimistic scenario. Not the worst case, because if we look to the left, actually this accumulation period back in very early days, 2020, actually were way lower at the white line. So that's around 0.074. Next, TRAC. Alright, original trail. Alright, it has gone through a very quick distribution, seemingly coming down for the preliminary support stage. The volume is actually a bit low, so that's why I said seemingly. It may not be over yet. Alright, so we had this automatic reaction, we have this sign of weakness. It's definitely further coming down. So let's see how far it's going to go. Is it going to challenge the yellow key level of 30 cents, or like just above it the 35 cents green key level, because that's where the previous accumulation cycle happened back in earlier this year, April all the way to September. Not too far from now. So it can start accumulating around those levels. Looking at the daily chart, yesterday was a confirmation that it broke the sideways trend. So now we have to adjust. It's not a sideways anymore. Let's bring it back to a downtrend. So let's assume that this is the case. And if we adjust, you can see it's trading at the weaker half. So it's going to be a long way to confirm a breakout. Okay, what's worse is that the volume yesterday was high. So it's probably going to seek further support down here around 40 cents, the light blue key level, or even the green key level of 35 cents. Like I said just now. So if it's really coming down for an accumulation, those are the levels where we would see that the price continue to come lower for. Let's draw a center line as well. It's definitely trading at the weaker side of the air hockey table. Alright, the behavior or the exploration towards the south side is probably going to continue. Unless, like I said, very crazily good news comes out and push the entire market upward. Now we have ULTIMA. This was supposed to be a sign of strength, pumping up. The volume, however, dies down pretty quickly, ended at around the yellow key level of 6318. So if it ends here and doesn't go any further up to challenge the 8271 light blue key level, I would consider this just a test that failed to show a sign of strength. So I won't give it an SOS tag. Alright. Daily chart, what does it say? This uptrend? Don't jump into conclusion that it's over. Look at this long wick from the bottom. It found support at the orange key level of 5257. So we can adjust this air hockey table. Moving it to this stage, extend it a bit. So what's the next confirmation date of a potential trend change? Okay, this is pointing towards Boxing Day or December 27th. I don't expect tomorrow it's going to come down to this narrow corner and drop it out, but it can. So within a day's time, if it doesn't hold the orange key level 5257, there's a chance for it to come down. Alright, because the big picture perspective, a test can actually happen, and if there's not enough support up there, it's normal for it to come down. So this trend isn't that strong as of this moment. So there were some buying, but the selling above the yellow key level of 6318 was quite strong. Obviously there were some buying, but today or yesterday actually kind of negated what happened over here, the buying, the support that it found. So ULTIMA, this test will continue. Expect more sideways from a bigger picture perspective. Virtual. Okay, after a sign of strength, you see the volume. It tested the blue key level, so very close to where the automatic rally was, and came down for another test. So that's expected, more tests. And currently the volume gets lower, trying to stay above the red key level of 0.67, where the October 10th, those 3 weeks, closed above. The red key level was where the preliminary support stage was at around March this year. Not much further in history. Again, Yang coin profile not clearly set. This short-term downtrend has been broken, like we said last week, and it's So this is similar, right? This looks very similar to some of those that we have just did. The past few days has been setting or traveling along the ceiling of the wider measurement. So the tricky part here is that, do we consider this like a more gradual decline? So I set the box this way, because otherwise we have to set the box this way. That means a steeper decline, which isn't impossible, but looking at the volume, it looks like it's stabilizing along the red key level, and also that's where the October period happened to bottom out at after the October 10th. So let's assume the milder case is happening. From the center line is still at the weaker side of the air hockey table, but staying close enough to the center line, and is actually edging towards confirming whether this downtrend is going to continue. So this points to 16th of Jan, exactly 1 month from now. So by then we'll get a confirmation whether this downtrend is over. Hopefully it's going to trade sideways for the coming 2 weeks between the red key level of 67 cents to the orange key level of 93 cents. So that's for virtual. And then we have XDC. So previously I said, it's getting very close to a selling climax, and it seems like it's still developing because the wicks from the top kind of saying, okay, there's still some people trying to sell when the price reached the 0.052 light blue key level. So the range bound between 0.045, the green key level, and 0.052, the light blue key level, is still going to be the norm. We're expecting automatic rally. It hasn't yet shown up. The trend, if it's going through this trend, it's still trading on the stronger side. Just yesterday, it's got a bit of volume combined with a price climb. So we want to see more of that. So if it trades sideways, like I said, if it continues to do this towards the tip of this triangle, it's pointing towards the 21st or 20th of January. It doesn't wait till that time to confirm it. It can go out sooner, but that's a point that we want to look at, because when it goes out sooner, it can come back sometimes. The volume isn't too worrying as of this moment. Just that this one over here, this rejection from the light blue key level is still there basically. But by the time when we get closer, after Christmas, there will be more clarity. And stellar is next. Stellar. Okay, another sign of weakness. And I probably said before, it's not a must that it has a sign of weakness. It's just that I put a tag over here. If there is an LPSY, then eventually this means this is like a V shape, if not a U shape, like what's over here. Alright, then this will be an LPSY. It can also go straight back to accumulation. Alright, if it goes straight back to accumulation, like the last lick over here, without rebound, obviously then that won't be sign of weakness. So it's currently trying to stay within this distribution. Not that it has any upthrust before. So like some of the 2 or 3 other projects that we covered in the beginning, if Stellar managed to stay within the distribution for long enough, it may be able to show an upthrust. That means challenging the price of 56 cents, the purple key level, or even higher. Alright, that in 2021 cycle, it actually challenged higher. So that's still a possibility because it's staying up, not getting pushed too low. October 10th, and somewhere around the center line of this long-term playground string, that's around 16, 17 cents. Not too bad, because that was actually the top of the accumulation cycle back in 2002 all the way into 2004. If we get to the daily chart, the downtrend is still continuing. Volume, not very indicative because it's still fluctuating. It's trying to stay above this yellow dashed line that we have drawn before. So for 2 consecutive days, this line is borrowed from the previous lows back in July as well as April. Alright, this line is still giving some impact. Whether it's strong enough to keep the price above here, we'll soon find out because it's still going through a downtrend. And coming down to the orange key level of 20 cents is not a surprise. That's where this testing period came in April. Obviously, we don't have to talk about the 2002 to 2004. And if it trades sideways above this dashed line, or between these 2 yellow dashed lines, okay, this points to February 23rd, 24th. This points to March 14th, somewhere around mid-March. Okay, those 2 can be confirmation that the downtrend is over. Of course, you can say, oh, how about it's got very good strength going up above this yellow dash line. That will get us to early Feb. Okay, very pessimistic, go even higher than the white that points to mid-Jan. Then is that chance likely? Alright, let's get back to the bigger picture. Like I said, if it stays long enough within this distribution and the narrative or the capital comes in by 2026, early 2026, it can definitely do its challenge towards the upthrust or at least a second test again. So that's when it's possible to break outside all of this very early in 2026. Not that it's like an impossible thing, but be really careful that it's actually very close to the accumulation range. So that's for Stella. And last but not least, CBEC network, ZBCN. We previously said, hey, is it actually, or has it actually come down for the preliminary support back in November? This sign of weakness was actually set back then, earlier, and we had the last LPSY over here. Right? Is that the case? This week is a bit mixed because the bulls and the bears are making a cross, meaning they're agreeing on this price of 0.0025. To take a deep breath right at that point, but there are still 5 days, 4 hours left for this week's candle. And 5 weeks or 4 weeks ago, in mid-November, it actually tested the green key level of 0.0021. So it can definitely come back down to accumulate. Not saying it's going to accumulate as low as the white solid line at 0.0009. Okay, it can accumulate higher, maybe around the orange key level of 0.0015 or 0.0018, the yellow key level. But then, the previous weeks, it has long wicks from above, so there are definitely selling pressure. Looking at the daily, it is trading along the center line of the downtrend air hockey table. Those dates are still far, so this date is mid-Feb. If it comes down to the green, it's probably get into mid-March. Alright, if this is mid-Feb, this is definitely getting into mid-March. However, if you say, like if we take a more gradual trend, not that we can because of October 10th, unless we ignore it, then we can push it, push this channel up. But I don't want to do that for now, because anyway, it's going to be quite a long wait unless the price really found support at this stage. You'll see this long wick from the bottom, this white cross over here. If this week, like today, stays the same and if it does a U-turn, coming back up to the blue, or even above the blue, Okay, this level, this key level of 0.0032. So this we already talked about mid-Feb, right? If it comes back up to trade here, this is pointing towards mid-Jan. So there's a month difference at these two different levels. So let's see how high this time the price can be pushed up. So back in November the 22nd, it challenged one time, wasn't successful. Second day, not either. But 24th, 25th managed to push above the blue. So it can do something similar and confirm a breakout of the downtrend by mid-Jan. So that's the optimistic scenario among the other two more pessimistic, pointing towards mid-Feb and mid-March. Alright, so ZBCN, though looking at the big picture, if the selling climax is not around, meaning it's going to seek lower to one of these traffic light colors, so it isn't there yet. So the best case, if it really comes down, is mid-March. However, the rest is like end of March and then early April. This one, end of April. So somewhere around the end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter, if ZBCN really comes down for an accumulation, that may signal the finishing of downtrend and turns into a sideways trend, which matches the Wyckoff method definition of the accumulation cycle, which most of the period is horizontal trading. Alright, so that's a lot and other speedrun session. Again, I will make these quicker and quicker. So by the time we get to be able to finish within an hour, covering around 30 projects, that's the goal we want to achieve. So thanks for joining me today. Have a great day and see you in 2 days. Because Wednesday, Thursday, I'm taking a break. That's an off day with my wife. Alright, see you.